Farm Progress, National Hog Farmer, and Feedstuffs are all here at the World Pork Expo, and I'm very excited. We're speaking with Ernie Meier, the Director of Quality Systems at the U.S. Supply Chain with McDonald's. Ernie, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
If you would, let's start with your role. Tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like working with McDonald's in the supply chain.
So I'm Director of Quality for U.S. Supply Chain, responsibility for a team of 3 folks. We manage all the protein categories for the U.S. business. So beef, pork, poultry, eggs, cheese, fish, and dairy.
And manage the poultry, or manage the segment. What does that mean? When you're managing the supply chain, how are you doing that?
So we have responsibilities for animal welfare, for quality and food safety at our supplier level. And so we work with our suppliers. We have a great group of dedicated suppliers across all those different categories that help us manage from the farm all the way across the counter at our restaurants.
That is impressive. Now, as you think about being here at the World Pork Expo, talking with pork producers, Ernie, how have supply chain issues disrupted pork moving through the system?
You know, supply chain issues have disrupted a lot of different supply chains across categories, and pork is not immune to that as we look across how things have happened over the past couple of years. But I tell you, connecting with producers here at the Pork Expo is a great opportunity for us to connect our customers, the McDonald's system, to the producers and really hear their voice and what their challenges are and understand what they're focused on and where we need to focus.
Well, as you've been here and talking to producers about those very issues, what have the challenges that you've heard?
Yeah, so there's quite a few, right? So I think some of the things that we've heard and focused on, staffing. I think everybody has been challenged with staffing. We have inflationary pressures that no one's immune to across the industry and across supply chains. High fuel prices, fertilizer, and other things have all been challenges that we're all, faced with.
Ernie, let's talk a little bit about how much pork McDonald's uses comes from the U.S.
So we source nearly all of our pork from the U.S., but we also source some raw materials from Canada. So really all of our products come from either U.S. or Canada that make it into our finished products of Canadian bacon, sausage patties, and strip bacon.
That is something else. Now, let's talk a little bit about new suppliers. As you're looking to bring somebody on into this very large McDonald's supply chain, what do you look for, and how do you determine whether or not they'll be a good fit?
Well, we really focus on our values and integrity and what people stand for from a supplier perspective. So we're looking for somebody that can model our values and their organization, but also bring us challenges, right? Help us get better as we continuously improve, as we continue to move forward.
Now, that's tough to measure integrity when you're working with someone for the first time. You don't have that background. What do you use methodologically in your role to determine whether or not that's going to be a good fit?
So from a quality, food safety, and animal welfare standpoint, it's really about going to visit and spending some time with our suppliers, and we really want to understand how they do business. You can do a lot, over the phone, but you can really see a lot more when you're boots on the ground. You're at a supplier, talking to people in the organization, and you can really understand how that organization functions.
So McDonald's and the supply chain team sends people out to all of these new suppliers to check in to see how they'd work within the system.
Whether it be McDonald's or our current suppliers that go out and work with our approved supply list, right, in the packing community, but we'll visit as well, right? We don't get to everyone every year, but throughout our supply chain and with our suppliers who help support us, we go out and try to make a big impact in that space.
Let's look out to the future. Product development. We love to see new products coming to market, new ways to use U.S. pork, get it out there to the consumer. Ernie, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so pork is great. I'm not going to lie, bacon is my favorite. There's always an opportunity for product development as we look forward. McRib is coming back this year, which is a fan favorite. As we look to the future of what that product mix might look like, honestly, it's got to earn its business. It's got to earn its place on our menu as we think about bringing things back on. Has to be customer demand and customer driven. And so not, closing our eyes to anything new, but we want to make sure that it's highly sought after by our customers and it's a fan favorite.
And that's the McRib to a T, isn't it? The consumer loves the McRib. How long have McDonald's been using the McRib?
That's a great question. I'd have to look that one up, but it's been well over my time at McDonald's. I would say 20 plus years, maybe in that space. I'm not certain. With
yeah,
that,
sure. But people seek it out year in and year out. Ernie, alternative proteins, the plant-based proteins, these other developments are coming. How do they fit within your role in the supply chain and more broadly in the McDonald's ecosystem?
Well, I think conversation goes back to the customer. If there's customer demand for those types of products, we'll look and source and sell that product. Ray Kroc's famous saying many years ago was, I don't know what we're going to be selling in 30 years, but we're going to sell more of it than anyone else. And so, it's true with Chicken McNuggets, it's true with hamburgers, and I would say it's true in the pork space as well. We're working to sell more than we can than anyone else, and if plant-based has a spot there, we're not going to turn away from it if the customer demands it.
For pork producers who didn't make it here to World Pork Expo, Ernie, what should they be thinking about as they're putting McDonald's in context of their pork operation? How does that teamwork happen?
Yeah, I think the big message for pork producers who aren't here is to put it on your calendar and come next year. But really to think about how they can carry the message of the pork industry out to consumers. I think the statistic is less than 1% of the U.S. population is involved in agriculture in some level. And so, how do we tell the story, the pork story, better and tell the truth about it and not have other people tell the story for us? So when other people get involved, that the story gets maligned and changed. And so we need producers who consumers love and trust to tell the story better about what's going on in the pork industry.
Ernie, to that end, a lot of folks working in business, even if they touch agriculture, they didn't grow up in that milieu. I imagine you have some of those folks on your team at McDonald's. How can you work to educate your team members, or how does McDonald's do that to bring them up to speed on the ag industry?
Yeah, so I'm one of those folks who didn't grow up in agriculture, but have spent my career working in ag, and from college on. And it's really about involving yourself in the ag community, getting to know producers, getting to know how things come to market, what are the challenges, what are the successes. Obviously, a continuous improvement program in place, right? Always challenging to get better. If you're not green, you're growing, right? Another Ray Kroc saying there. And so I think as people, in our supply chain come into the system, part of my job is to help educate and have them learn where their food comes from, how the products come to market. And so I get to go out and visit farms, I get to go out and visit suppliers, I get to visit all nodes of our supply chain.
That is fantastic, and it gives you a really unique vantage point, seeing consumers and producers working together. What would you like to see producers telling more about their side of the industry? What would help you in talking to consumers?
Yeah, I think if producers just really talked more about how the product comes to market and really all of the good things that they do. We talk about sustainability and carbon emissions and those types of things. You think about producers are sustainable, right? They have to be in that space, and they've been doing a lot of great things over the years that really haven't been talked about. Manure application on fields and how that's improved soil quality and soil health over the years. All of those things are really closing that circle of GHG reduction and a better story for the industry and a better story for the environment.
Now, before we let you go, Ernie, you are supply chain manager. Let's talk about this supply chain. Are things getting easier to come by? Are we starting to see some of the hiccups move up behind us from COVID?
I think there's always going to be challenges, and I think we still see those today, whether it be from individual small ingredients, weather systems that move through, shipping disruptions. They are getting better, but we're not out of the woods yet, and I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to keep plugging ahead and making sure that we look for the next issue that might come down the road so that we can mitigate against it.
Fantastic. Well, keep an eye on that future. Ernie, thank you for the work you do in the pork supply chain for McDonald's. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
That's Ernie Meier, the Director of Quality Systems of U.S. Supply Chain at McDonald's.